I miss the early days on the internet when if somebody saw an opinion they didn't like, they just scrolled down.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, E-Steam Blast from the Past. Hell's aspiring angel takes on her demonic doppelganger in this action-packed, time-traveling E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam Blast from the Past with a bonus E-Steam comic book, No Good Deed, in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.
Actress Letitia Wright came under fire this weekend after she posted a link to a video speaking against vaccination. Now, this weekend, your Letitia Wright decided to go on Twitter and express her opinions regarding the COVID 19 pandemic and posted a link to a YouTube video which spoke against vaccination. And she posted this link next to a pair of praying hands because your Letitia Wright is a devout Christian. And after your Letitia Wright posted this link to this video, all of social media went into an uproar and there were calls to cancel Letitia Wright. And what was even more troubling is one of those calls came from one of her co-stars, Don Cheadle. Now, when I take a critical examination of what happened to Letitia Wright, what happened to Letitia Wright is she got a crash course in racism from the left. Now, the left oftentimes talks about how tolerant it is of black people, but in most cases, they only tolerate black people if one, those black people can make money for them, and two, if those black people agree with all of the things that they're saying. And your Letitia Wright, being a foreign-born Guyanese black person, she thought that she would be able to have the freedoms that were supposed to be guaranteed to us under the United States Constitution. And those freedoms guarantee usually a citizen the right to freedom of speech, the right to freedom of expression, and the right to freedom of religion. Unfortunately, when it comes down to some of those so-called social justice warriors on the left, they really do not understand the foundations of our United States Constitution. And when it comes down to speech they don't like, they make every effort to try to censor individuals who present speech that they don't like. And when they heard that Letitia Wright was having opinions that of her own, that's when many of these leftists started to get triggered and they started to get very angry because here was a black person who was deciding to think on her own, and that's a no-no when it comes down to many on the left. Now, your leftists oftentimes talk about, again, people having freedom, but they can only have their freedom in exchange for agreeing with their position. So, in many ways, your Letitia Wright just got a hard crash course in racism from the left because the left sees black people not as men and women with thoughts and opinions of their own, but they see them as children who are working on their plantation, and they saw what they thought was a slave who was getting out of line, and they wanted to send a message to their slave that to get back in line. Now, the reason why they wanted to send this message was because they know that Letitia Wright is a foreign-born black, and she's not familiar with many of the unwritten rules as related to racism here in America. Now, if your Letitia Wright were an American-born black, she would know that there are lines that aren't supposed to be crossed, and that's where your buck dancing Don Cheadle comes in. He's trying to be the good slave boy and tell Letitia Wright that she's gone against the slave masters in Hollywood, and to get herself back in line. However, I thought that this was the United States of America, and in this United States of America, people, again, had the right to freedom of speech and freedom of expression and freedom of religion. Unfortunately, when it comes down to those on the left, you are only, again, allowed those rights only if you agree with their opinion. And that's quite troubling because, again, it just shows me how our Constitution seems to stop when it comes down to social media. And it shows me how far our country has fallen because I remember almost 20 years ago when I used to go to places like the Wizard World message boards. And when you went on these Wizard World message boards, you would hear all sorts of differing opinions. And back in those days, people used to just scroll down, and if they saw something they didn't like, and they moved on. And that's not happening these days because many people today, as I see it, have become extremely fragile. And these people today, as fragile as they can't seem to handle a difference of opinion. And like a junior high school clique, whenever they hear an opinion they don't like, they come with a mob to try to force the other person to agree with them or risk having their reputation and their career destroyed. And that's what happened to Letitia Wright this weekend, as after she decided to post this link to this anti-vaccination video. She wound up not only being attacked by the Twitter mob, they also started to talk about how they wanted to cancel your Letitia Wright. And they also talked about trying to get her taken out of her role on the MCU's Black Panther movie and kicked out of the MCU. And I found that to be, again, quite troubling in the United States of America, a country that was founded on the First Amendment and free speech and freedom of expression. I found it quite troubling that we had American citizens calling for this immigrant to have her job taken away from her, all because she expressed an opinion based on her religious beliefs. But it seems like if you don't follow the religion of the left, you are not considered someone allowed to have rights. And what they were trying to do with your Letitia Wright, as I see it, was they wanted to hire this foreign-born black person, thinking that they could easily find somebody who would go out here and agree with their viewpoints. However, now that they're finding that your Letitia Wright is standing firm on her Christian beliefs and standing up for what she believes is right, now they have an issue with Letitia Wright. But what is even more troubling to me overall is the behaviors of your Don Cheadle. And your Don Cheadle showed me that he really is not somebody we in the black community that we can trust, because he fell right in line with his Hollywood slave masters. And instead of him standing up for a righteous sister who was just expressing her opinions as related to her beliefs in the Most High, your Don Cheadle showed us that he worships the system of white supremacy, and he decides to go out here and act like Stephen from Django Unchained, and decides to flip on Letitia Wright and decides to go and stand by his slave masters, standing for them and what they believe in, instead of standing up for this sister and standing by this sister to show her that there is black solidarity and we're going to stand together as black men and women for each other. That was the thing that I really had an issue with Don Cheadle, was his buck dancing and bojangling for the man. Instead of him, again, standing up for a sister, he goes and stands with white supremacy and stands with this woke mob, which is actually standing against every principle in this country. And these racists, what they want to do is tell a black person how to think. And who made these people God over us to tell us how to think. That's something that your Don Cheadle really doesn't understand about what's happening here with Letitia Wright. What these leftists want to do is they are saying, in an underhanded way, you're too stupid to think for yourself, so we need you to think the way we want you to think, and we need you to parrot the opinions we want parroted. And if you want to be able to make money with us, the only way you can do that is to agree with us. Now, when I hear those types of statements, they don't come across as American. They come across as the things a fascist would say. And when I look at that Twitter mob that came after Letitia Wright, they don't come across as Americans. They really come across as fascists who want to dictate to people what they should think, what they should say. And it really shows me how far our internet has fallen, because I thought that the information superhighway was supposed to be a place where people learn to become better people. But it seems like the woke Twitter mob has learned how to become really reprehensible human beings, because it seems like whenever these people hear an opinion that they don't like, instead of doing like my generation did when the internet first came out in the year 2000 and scroll down and move on with their life, these people get so incensed over a difference of opinion that they practically want to form a mob and want to lynch or crucify whatever individual is presenting that difference of opinion. And that's not what mature adults do here in the United States. No, mature adults here in the United States, when I first came to the internet in the year 2000, we knew how to deal with a difference of opinion by just scrolling down and getting on with our life, because we understood in this country you're going to run into all sorts of different people from all sorts of walks of life. And when you're running into these different people from all walks of life, you're going to hear different opinions and different viewpoints. And even if you disagree with those viewpoints, the thing that you do is just scroll down and have a nice day, because life is too short to get upset because somebody has a different frame of thinking than your frame of thinking. Now, I've been on this internet for over 20 years, and back in the day, we didn't have these problems because people had some semblance of maturity to say, look, I know I'm going on this information superhighway, and part of being on information superhighway is hearing differences of opinions and learning that those people have those opinions and coming to understand that that's just how the world works. I mean, God did not make everybody the same, and he gave everyone free will to go out here and pursue their own life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So who gave these woke people the right to go out here and try to censor Letitia Wright, all for having a difference of opinion? And again, it just seems like these woke types are really expressing racism as I see it, because you're Letitia Wright, a foreign-born black woman. She's come here to achieve the American dream, and it seems like that American dream, which is free for everybody else back in the day, now is having strings attached to it, and those strings attached by these far leftists is to tell someone that you can have access to the American dream only if you agree with our opinions and only if you go along with our view of the world. Again, that's not something that Americans really should want to go for, because that's the type of thinking a fascist has. And I saw that type of fascism back in the day when I was going to IS 148 Junior High School in the Bronx. And in the junior high school, you have it where these people form these cliques, and these cliques try to dictate how everybody behaves, and if you disagree with those individuals, they make an effort to try to destroy you socially, and that's what I'm seeing done right here by many of what I believe to be these immature woke types who believe that it's their right to try to destroy Letitia Wright, all because she decided to stand up for her God and stand up for what she believed in. And what I found to be even sadder about this whole situation is that Letitia Wright was forced to delete her social media on Twitter and was forced to apologize to this mob. And I really was shaking my head about that, because we really need more people to stand up against this mob, because these people with this junior high school mindset of thinking that they can silence people, these are people who have a very fascist viewpoint of things, and they want to try to make everybody fall in line with their view of the world, and that's not how adults function in these United States. I mean, it reminds me a lot of what I wrote about with Matilda Crowley character in Spellbound, and what she was dealing with these black girls who were mad at her because she wasn't acting like them. Letitia Wright wasn't acting like what the mob wanted to be, so now they're trying to force her to conform, and that's, again, not what our country was founded on. Our country was founded on the concepts of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the First Amendment was supposed to guarantee everybody a right to free speech, freedom of religion, and freedom of expression. But these days, what's troubling is that so many of us are now finding out that those rights seem to come with strings, and your Letitia Wright is finding out the hard way that those rights are coming with strings. And if you don't agree with the leftist mob, then the leftist mob takes away those rights, and then they try to cancel said individual, trying to destroy their reputation, trying to destroy their ability to make a living, and trying to destroy their ability to even be able to walk about freely in this country. And that's something that most Americans should really stand up against, because that's not what our country was supposed to be about. And when we look at these cancel culture types, they really are un-American. And to do this to Letitia Wright just shows us how depraved these individuals are, and how very immature these individuals are, because these individuals, they're not going to stop with Letitia Wright, and they don't see people as people. And when I look at the way they treated her, again, it shows me something really troubling about Hollywood as related to race. They show us that they don't see black people as people. They see black people as slaves on their Hollywood plantation. And if you go against the Hollywood slave masters and you disagree with them, then they try to punish you by making it where you suffer through a social media lynching. And that's what this was, a social media lynching of a black woman. And what was even sadder was we had Don Cheadle in the role of Stephen going along with his slave masters instead of standing up for a black woman who seemed to be wanting to do right by black people and wanting to stand up and just be a free citizen in a free country. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my positive African American fiction, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the Smith-Dorella trilogy, you can pick up all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on other e-readers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, ISIS, All That Glitters. The Goddess Next Door takes on a bikini-clad bank robber in this action-packed, all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS, All That Glitters in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.